teams, and Travis joins us on Sic'Em 365 Radio. So, Travis, I saw an article. I was able to not read all of it because of just time, but you had written something about just kind of studying Ron Roberts and some of the things either he's been saying or clinics or what. What was that one about?
Oh, yeah. I mean, he had a clinic that he gave recently that made available. Basically, it was just kind of a basic, how we act multiple on defense. Multiple, kind of one of those buzzwords that, especially if you a new head coach or a new coordinator hired, they're always saying how they're going to be multiple, how they're going to be aggressive, all those kind of words that don't really mean anything. And so Roberts was the clinic was basically about, what does being multiple on defense actually mean? So he kind of walked through, what does it mean to defense teams when they're playing big with two tight ends? How do you do that? And then, how do we change things up when we're going against teams like, an Ole Miss or TCU that's playing with 4 and 5 wide all the time?
Travis Roeder. I got to get to that first. I have to say your name. So we had you on the last time, and then all of a sudden I get a text from you. You're incredibly polite because I've been saying your name wrong for how long now? A year or something?
Okay, you don't have to tell everyone.
Well, when you have a name spelled like I do, you should get every name or at least ask how people pronounce your name as well. How much do you think Josh White is going to make a difference with Ron Roberts and his defense?
I mean, I think Josh is going to be a hell of a player by the time he gets out at Baylor. Whether that's this year or not is going to be really interesting to see. I think, Dylan Doyle's got his spot ironed down. He's the first team All Big 12 guy. Just really the linchpin of what Baylor does defensively. But the spot next to him, which is vacated by Terrell Bernard, Will Williams, he's out of El Paso. He's in his 3rd or 4th year now. And I thought he looked like one of Baylor's 10 best players in the spring game. Overall, like if I had to list Baylor's 10 best players, I think Will Williams is up there now. And so now it's kind of a thing where, hey, if Will wins the spot, that is going to be great. But if Josh beats him out, he's going to be a hell of a player. I think kind of regardless whether Josh is starting this year or if he takes over Dylan Doyle's spot next year, he's going to be awesome. Just a prototypical linebacker. It's kind of recruit that Baylor very, very rarely gets assigned in the sense that he's basically kind of just ready-made to be a terrific college player. There's not a lot of dreaming that has to be done with him. It's pretty obvious what it's going to look like. He's strong. He's fast. He's going to be really good.
Travis, you wrote a lot, in the battle about the battle at quarterback leading up to spring and then after.
Yeah.
And you were very, I wouldn't say anti-Blake Shapen, that's the wrong way to put it, but pro Gary Bohannon because of his strengths. Now that decision has been made, what has changed your vision of, or at least made you look differently at the quarterback position going forward now that it's Blake Shapen's team from here on out unless he gets hurt?
Yeah. I mean, the tough thing whenever you're doing these predictions is it's like, to make a prediction interesting, you kind of have to be bold, but at the same time, it's always couched in a bunch of caveats. And for me, that was always like, I think from everything from the outside looking in, I thought Blake Shapen would be clearly better than Gary to surpass him. It couldn't be a deal where like, we think Blake is maybe 1 or 2% better. Let's, have him supplant the team leader and the guy who took us mostly to the Super Bowl last year. That was kind of the deal for me. I think what the decision tells you is that, Baylor thinks that they, have a repeat Big 12 championship team. They have aspirations towards making the playoffs. And if you're going to do that, you have to put the absolute best foot forward. I just think it really kind of speaks volumes to Aranda because, how many coaches do you know that are willing to do exactly what I said, which is supplant a team leader, a guy who's known as one of the hardest working guys on the team, well liked by everyone in the media, teammates alike, and just saying, look, we're going to make this team as best as possible. We're going to go with somebody else. I mean, I just think that takes a lot of cojones and speaks to how, the best man. If you're the best guy, you're going to get a great opportunity. Look at how the offense looks different. I think the offense is largely going to look the same as far as, what plays they run and stuff like that. I think the biggest difference is that it really allows Jeff Grimes as a play caller a little bit more flexibility as far as being aggressive early on in the down. Because one thing that happened last year is that Baylor really had to, like the plague, they had to avoid any sort of clear passing down, any sort of 3rd and 6 plus, because that was just not Gary's strength to be able to drop back in the pocket and, look at 3 or 4 different receivers and deliver a good ball. But with Shapen, you can feel a little bit more comfortable taking shots on early downs, saying, okay, even if we miss them and we end up in the 3rd and 8, it's not the end of the world if he's better at going through those reads. Obviously, the quarterback run game is a big thing. That's going to be different. You're not going to be able to run Shapen the same way you could Gary. So there's going to be some kind of athletic differences. The playbook's largely going to be the same, but I think it gives Grimes a little bit more flexibility for being aggressive early on.
Travis, we're going to put you on hold and try to see if we can reestablish, because it's kind of an if and back, in and out connection. So we're going to hang up and try to call you back and see if we can establish that a little bit better. Travis Roeder, he writes for Sic'Em365.com, covers Baylor football, and we've talked a little bit about Ron Roberts, the defense, certain matches, and also the quarterback competition as well. We'll get into some of those who are arriving. It's June 1st. Players start to arrive on campus. The newcomers, those who have not been here already for the spring semester, start to arrive now. And will be interesting to see how many of them have an impact on this upcoming season, because, again, the depth chart has some openings, but for the most part, pretty much a lot of things are set.
Yeah, I mean, Baylor's not a team with a lot of holes. I guess, one thing that he was talking about there was the quarterback spot, and clearly there are some people that still feel like maybe Bohannon would have been the wiser decision and have laid out those reasons why. And clearly the coaches feel like it's Blake Shapen, but it's interesting to get people's thoughts. And obviously that's going to be one coming up this year where, depending on how Shapen performs, I mean, that's going to be the big talking point. That's going to be the big story is, was the right decision made ultimately? And can they stay healthy? That's going to be a big question too.
Travis Roeder rejoins us now, Sic'Em 365 Radio. Sic'Em365.com, college football analyst.
Travis, looking at the defensive backs, I mean, I know at corner they've got Al Walcott and Mark Milton back. Behind that, a lot of young guys. Safety, Christian Morgan's back. I know that also the changes they can make defensively as far as moving guys around, but they lost a lot of experience back in the secondary. What are your levels of optimism / concern in terms of that grouping coming up next season?
Well, hopefully y'all can hear me better now. Sorry about that. I mean, I'm pretty optimistic. I think corner, they're going to be even better than they were last year, which I know they just had Kalen Barnes drafted, but I still think a lot of his draft stock was in his potential. I think he was a fine, solid college corner, but he's not a guy that I'm looking at as impossible to replace. And I think Mark Milton could provide something very similar. But overall, I think, really when you look at Baylor's defensive backs, you have to say, how good do they need to be for Baylor to get where they want to go to repeat as champions? And, when you have the defensive front that Baylor has, basically I think what you're looking for is just consistency. The perfect pass and a great catch are uncoverable. So you can't be perfect. But what you really want to see from those guys is just knowing the playbook, being stable, not giving up any errors that just lead to wide open receivers. Just make the other team earn it. And so I think that really kind of comes down to coaching more than anything else, because the talent's there. And so I think it's kind of on Kevin Curtis, on that defensive staff, to make sure that they're ready to go each week. Because it's really, I think, just going to be more about providing stability, not making big mistakes, and just let that awesome defensive front just win up front.
Who, if they played against each other and they practice against each other every day, is better, the offensive line or defensive line?
Oh, man. Okay. Oh, well, I mean, I have an answer for this, but, I don't want to make either coach upset. But I think it's probably the defensive line. I think what Eric Mateos has done with that offensive line is, second to none as far as any coaching job out there in America. Y'all don't need to be told, and fans don't need to be reminded, but oh my God, was the offensive line bad for several years there? Just awful. And for him to kind of take that unit and transform them into a good, if not great unit within 1 year, just speaks volumes. I think the difference on the defensive line is that they just not only are extremely well coached and really good at their respective positions, but they just have a couple of guys that I think are kind of on a next level in terms of NFL talent and size. Guys like Gabe Hall, Apu Ika, even TJ Franklin, and some others that are, on the second team. just have kind of next level athleticism in a way that maybe not necessarily all the O linemen have. But that's a tough question. It's definitely the two strengths of the team.
No, there's no question. It's a good thing. If, in fact, other than your quarterback coming back who's a dog, aren't those the 1 and 2 positions you want to be your strength on any football team?
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, you want them to be your strength. It was interesting. I was thinking about, Baylor's got a tough road slate this year. And I was kind of thinking through with a friend, like, would you rather have veteran skill pieces on the road, or would you rather have like veteran trenches? And, my inclination was just like, I think you want to have veteran guys on the trench because, on the hostile road environment, you're making, the O-line's making protection calls. It's kind of like their own world where they're kind of isolated from the tough road environment. And so, that'll be kind of an interesting contrast to see this year. Baylor's breaking in, not a brand new quarterback. Obviously, we all saw what Chapin did in the Big 12 title game. But for a lot of these tough road environments, it's going to be his first time to do so. And so hopefully he'll be able to lean on a veteran offensive line, and the defense will be able to lean on those guys up front to kind of ignore the noise and really just produce greatness even in hostile environments.
What does it say that his first actual true opportunity was at Kansas State in the moment in which they needed him? Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that first play was, I want to say his first play was like a 4th and 6 or something like that. And Jeff Grimes called a passing play for him, which was just, that's just insane. It shows you I think it's just, Grimes runs a really quarterback friendly system. And I know that it can be used as a pejorative, as if it makes the quarterback's accomplishments less. I don't think that necessarily is what that means, but I think what it shows you is that if you play quarterback at Baylor under Jeff Grimes with Sean Bell, that they're creating a system to where when your foot hits the grass for the first time, you're ready to go. There's no having to get your feet wet. You're ready to roll. And I think that speaks a lot. And obviously Chapin has a lot of that moxie and plays with a lot of that kind of confidence in and of himself as well.
Travis, I will hold this answer over your head until the end of the season. But who will be the leading receiver, wide receiver wise, for Baylor this year? And if you're wrong, then, I'll just tease you mercilessly.
I think it's going to be Monterey Baldwin. He's the 5'8" kid out of Killeen. I think he's listed at 5'9" on the Baylor roster, but you can always subtract an inch or two whenever the guys are that short.
Hey, leave us alone.
Yeah,
go ahead.
But yeah, I think he's pretty special. He had a really good spring game. And the other thing, I don't know if people know this, but he was out almost all of spring with a hamstring injury, and then came back, practiced a few times, and then just exploded in the spring game. I think he's really going to kind of become the downfield target for Blake Chapin. And he's also really good in that role. I'm trying to think of guys who have done this in the past in the Big 12, but almost sort of like what Deuce Vaughn does in the sense of like on a 3rd and 6, you can kind of just line him up in the slot and give him, 7 different options for which route to run. And then just let him go win because he's going to win. I think Monterey Baldwin's going to be that kind of guy for Baylor this year. They've got some really good targets on the outside, but as far as total yards goes, I think Monterey's going to take so many plays to the house deep that he'll probably add up a lot of yards.
Travis, again, Roeder, Sic'Em365.com, college football analyst with us on Sic'Em 365 Radio.
Travis, I know you've been taking a look at some of the Big 12 schools this offseason. I'm not sure how deep into it you are. I saw your Texas article. What has stood out to you so far in looking ahead at the rest of the Big 12?
I think it's another year where the league's going to be really good. I think what's really interesting, this might not be what every listener's mind first goes to, but, Kansas has been a below 100 national team for like 10 years now. I think this is finally the year where there's not an actual terrible team at the bottom, which has been Kansas. So that's kind of an interesting fact to see that I think they're going to be competitive. They look pretty good. But as far as teams that are actually threats to win the Big 12, I think there's 5 of them right now. Baylor, Oklahoma State, Kansas State, and then Oklahoma and Texas. I think Baylor and Kansas State are the 2 best teams that I've reviewed so far. Some people have been kind of surprised about the Kansas State comment, but if you look at the advanced metrics, they were a top 20 team last year. They just happened to get really unlucky with when their quarterback was hurt. When Skylar Thompson was healthy, they were a damn good football team. and even without him healthy, they were just a really good football team that didn't have a quarterback. And I know Smoke is probably thinking right now, how on earth are you saying that team is going to be good that has Adrian Martinez at the quarterback position? I feel like he's probably personally hurt you so many times, Smokey. But I think if there was any system in the world where he could go on, where he could be kind of honed and crafted to be as successful as he ever could be, it's Chris Kleiman at Kansas State. He's going to be coached by Colin Klein, the offensive coordinator there. I think that he's going to be really successful. And they just bring back all their most important guys, like Deuce Vaughn on offense. They have a bunch of seniors on defense. And then quickly, I wrote the article about Texas. I think they're going to be a really volatile team because their skill talent on offense is as good as it gets. They have questions on the offensive line. Oklahoma State is basically going to be the same team, except for they lose their entire secondary. So it's like if their secondary is good, they're going to be just as good as they were last year. I think it's kind of those 4 or 5 teams at the top there. But then nobody else is going to be terrible. We'll see what happens with McGuire at Texas Tech, how good they are in year 1. But, man, the Big 12 is so fun because it's not like other conferences where there's a clear kind of bottom of the league. It just seems like every year you have to scratch and claw for every week, every win.
Yeah, you could go down to the bottom quickly if you blink at the wrong time.
I do agree with you on Martinez and Kansas State. Like, if it's going to work for him.
He's an incredible talent.
Yeah.
The question is his IQ.
Yeah.
His football IQ sometimes on how to protect, when to protect, and knowing the down and distance in the situation kind of makes me a little nervous. But I love the guy. He's a great kid. Good luck to him.
I think what they tried to do with him at Nebraska is like, maybe they tried to maximize him in the sense of like make him a Heisman caliber quarterback to where gave him a lot of freedom to operate within the offense, And I think what he might be doing at Kansas State is a little bit more constrained. But I think some quarterbacks are really aided by an offense where they don't have as many options. Blake Shapen struggled with turnovers in high school. And I think in some sense playing in the Jeff Grimes offense has helped him because the down-to-down path for each play is a little bit more clear. And so I think you might see that at Kansas State too, where it's just like, look, this offense is about Deuce Vaughn. This offense is about, you running zone read where you help Deuce Vaughn be successful by also running the ball yourself and then throwing the ball here and there. And I think he's going to be really successful doing that.
Thank you, man. Travis, thanks for your time. Travis Roeder, Sic'Em365.com, college football analyst, breaks down film. I really have enjoyed it. And there's others that do this as well, but I love it when there's an article that's written and it's got like plays to go off of, like pictures of play or videos of plays to describe how this is working or not. It's really, really good. And Travis Roeder with us.